What happens when an ordinary request leads to an extraordinary encounter? A homeless man asked Clint Eastwood for just $1. But what he got instead changed his life forever. Before we dive into this powerful story, comment below where you're watching from today. And if you believe in the power of second chances, hit that subscribe button for more inspiring real-life stories. It was a mild afternoon in Los Angeles, the kind where the sun cast long golden shadows over the city. At an outdoor cafe on Melrose Avenue, an older man sat alone, his face partially hidden behind dark sunglasses. Clint Eastwood. Even at 93, the legendary actor carried an undeniable presence, a lifetime of wisdom etched into his features. Across the street, a different kind of man stood unnoticed by most. His clothes were tattered, layered in a desperate attempt to keep warm. His hair unkempt, his hands fidgeting nervously in his pockets. His name was Kevin, and this was his third week sleeping behind a dumpster. He was starving. Scanning the cafe for someone who might be kind enough to spare some change, his eyes locked onto Clint Eastwood. At first he hesitated. What could a man like that possibly care about someone like me? But hunger has a way of breaking down pride. Kevin took a deep breath and crossed the street. As Kevin approached the table, his voice barely above a whisper. "Sir, could you spare $1?" Clint looked up slowly, removing his sunglasses. His expression was unreadable. For a moment, Kevin wondered if he had made a mistake. Then, Clint leaned back in his chair, studying Kevin as if piecing together a puzzle. $1, huh? Clint's voice was calm, unreadable. Then, with a slight smirk, he added, "Sit down. Let's talk." Kevin blinked. Did he just invite me to sit? He searched Clint's face for any sign of mockery, but there was none, just calm curiosity. After a moment, Kevin slowly lowered himself into the chair. Clint's eyes remained steady. "What's your name?" he asked. "Kevin," he muttered, almost too quietly to hear. Clint nodded. "Kevin!" He repeated the name as if letting it settle. "I've played a lot of roles in my life," Clint said, his voice measured. "Cowboys, soldiers, outlaws. And you know what I learned? Every one of them had a story. Good, bad, ugly. It didn't matter. What mattered was how they carried it." Kevin shifted uncomfortably. "So tell me this, Kevin. What's the next chapter of your story?" Kevin stared at him. The next chapter. He hadn't thought that far ahead in a long time. I just want to make it through the day." Clint's eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in thought. "That's not a chapter, Kevin. That's a sentence. You need a chapter, a real one, something you can build on." Kevin clenched his jaw. "What do you know about struggle?" But he didn't say it. Because something about the way Clint spoke, it didn't feel like a lecture. It felt personal. Clint reached into his pocket. Kevin's heart sank. This is the part where he gives me $1 and sends me on my way. But Clint didn't pull out cash. Instead, he slid a business card across the table. Kevin stared at the card, confused. "Go here," Clint said, his voice steady. "It's a shelter run by a buddy of mine. They'll help you get cleaned up, find a job, maybe even a place to stay, but it's up to you to take the first step." Kevin's hands trembled as he picked up the card. "Why?" he asked, voice cracking. "Why are you doing this?" Clint's expression softened. "Because someone did it for me once, and I wouldn't be sitting here if they hadn't." Kevin sat there, stunned. He had expected indifference, maybe pity, but not this. Not someone looking him in the eye and telling him he still mattered. "I've tried places like that before," Kevin muttered. "They don't really help people like me." Clint leaned forward, voice quiet but firm. "People like you?" He raised an eyebrow. "What does that even mean?" Kevin swallowed hard. "We're just forgotten." Clint's gaze didn't waver. "You think I've never been down? You think I don't know what it's like to feel like the world has written you off?" Kevin looked up, startled. "I grew up dirt poor in the middle of the Depression," Clint continued. "I know what it's like to go to bed hungry, wondering if tomorrow will be any better. And let me tell you something, Kevin. It's not about how hard you fall. It's about whether you get back up, even when the odds are stacked against you." Kevin's throat tightened. For the first time in years, he felt something he couldn't quite name. Hope? Or maybe just the realization that he had nothing left to lose. Kevin stared at the card again, his mind racing. A shelter. A second chance. Could he really do it? "I'll think about it," Kevin whispered. Clint nodded. "Good. That's all I'm asking." As Kevin stood up, he clutched the business card like a lifeline. He turned back. "Thanks for listening." Clint gave a small nod. "Take care of yourself, Kevin." Kevin took a deep breath and stepped onto the sidewalk. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in years, he wanted to find out. If this story inspired you, share it with someone who believes in the power of second chances. And remember, sometimes the greatest gift isn't money. It's belief in someone who has lost all belief in themselves. What's the kindest thing a stranger has ever done for you? Tell us in the comments below. And if you love stories like this, hit that subscribe button for more powerful real-life lessons.